I don't know what Roger is complaining about. I don't know if y'all remember when we started this podcast, me in Slovenia. In the winter time down in that basement, I had like 6 layers of clothes on in the summertime. You guys would comment, "There's sweat coming down my face."
I remember that you always wore that beanie
Yeah.
during the winter.
My Tim Pool
Yeah.
beanie.
Yeah, but yeah, during the summer you look like Patrick Ewing in the fourth quarter, sweating, glistening.
Did you hear Roger saying that he's going to shut his AC down between 3 and 6? So when we
Well, no, we do.
record,
Well, no, we do. So we have out here in Arizona to conserve energy. SRP does, they call it like the Easy 3 plan or whatever. So basically from 3 to 6, if you run your anything that uses electricity, you pay a little bit over 3 times the standard amount. So, once 6 p.m. hits till 3 p.m. the next day, you can run anything, ACs, whatever. I mean, you can run anytime you want, but I go, normal, rate is like, I don't know, 13 cents a kilowatt or whatever the heck it is. Well, if you run it from 3 to 6, it's 39.40 cents a kilowatt, especially during the peak months, peak summer months. So most folks out here from 3 to 6, like 3 o'clock, everything shuts down. And then 6 o'clock, all my stuff cuts back on. If we don't do that, if we ran our AC, and weekends don't count. Once weekends hit, you're good. You can run it. And federal holidays don't count. But if we ran our AC from 3 to 6 every day, just keeping it at like 75, we'd have $1,000 bill every month. So you have to do it.
That's crazy.
I don't see the problem. What's the problem with that? For you, I mean.
Because it gets freaking hot, man.
I mean the money.
Like
I'm talking about the money.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hey, man, we just write a check. I thought you wanted money. We just write a check.
Hey, I'm going to write this check to you on Friday morning. Do not cash that until Monday. Right?
Hey, that was.
As a matter of fact,
that was.
Let's just make it Tuesday. To be safe.
Dude, that was real talk back in 1994 for me, man. That's some real talk.
Oh, dude, it was for all of us.
Yeah, man. Hey, you're like, hey, don't deposit this until Monday, please. And they just look at you and they're like, okay.
The problem is it would be so bad because like payday would be like Tuesday. So maybe you got paid Monday, which meant I was going to float a check on Thursday. Dude. Right. So it's like if I float it Thursday afternoon, like that ain't getting turned in till like Friday. They're not going to mess with it till Monday. I mean, dude. But the problem is when payday actually hit on Tuesday, dude, I'd already spent like 25, 30% of the money.
Yeah.
I was already in debt.
Yeah, a quarter of it's already gone.
Dude, when I worked retail, and this is again, back in the 90s, you guys remember, not everything was computerized back then. In fact, very little was. We had to, every night at that giant box toy store I worked at, we had to take 2 people and go deposit money into a bank.
You worked at a toy store?
Physically. Oh yeah, dude. It was like Toys R Us, but it was it was that size. It was awesome. Best first job ever. I just
keep thinking of him being like Richard Pryor in there, but whatever. Go ahead.
Oh, it was great.
He's like Tom Hanks and Big. Yeah.
Dude, it was awesome. But I started figuring out, okay, well, wait a minute. We didn't do it every night. It was like twice a week, right? It was this big old lock, one of those lock bags, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, wait, if we do this, everybody else is doing it too. So, all my friends in high school worked. So it's like we started to figure out when they would go drop off the checks. Like certain businesses in town, like especially fast food,
Sure.
writing a check at the fast food counter. Remember that? Knowing that they're not going to even deposit. It's Monday. I don't get paid until Thursday. They don't even deposit the checks until Thursday. Dude, we had it down, man, back then. A few of our listeners will be like laughing their asses off. But Darren, dude, all the overdraft fees I paid Amarillo National Bank over the years, that bought Darren a car, maybe even a house, every overdraft fee. Freaking Darren.
Dude, that's one of the reasons I had to go away from Wells Fargo. I had Wells Fargo as a young private, and they like halfway through, I was at DLI, and halfway through my school, they updated their checking thing. We're like, hey, if you're active duty and you have direct deposit, they'll let you withdraw from your next paycheck.
Oh.
Right. Yeah, dude. I was like, I need to go ahead and stop. So yeah. right then, dude, it was like the next day. I'm like, yeah, I need to go ahead and cancel my account. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, nah, dude, I can't be doing that. Like float
That's
check
pretty
day is one
wise.
thing. Yeah, float check. Well, I know me. I mean, and especially, dude, you're like 21. You're in Monterey. You know, you done had a couple drinks. You're down on the hill, bottom of the hill. You know what's going to happen. Like I'm gonna start pulling out, and next thing you know, man, I'm just gonna owe the man for forever. So it's like, you know what?
Was
I think I canceled it and went to Bank of America down the street.
was the Mucky Duck still there when you were there,
Yeah,
or was it there?
yep.
Yeah, Mucky Duck.
Mucky Duck was there, and it was there back when you could smoke in the Mucky Duck, and then yeah, dude, we were there I was there during the transition where they had just passed the law saying you couldn't smoke, dude. That's so when you look at the Democrats, you look at the left, and you know whatever you progressives and this and that. The only good thing that's come from any of that stuff is the smoking. But back then, like you could smoke. You know, the Mucky Duck was a bar. I think they serve food, right? Like bar food or some shit like that. Yeah. So
No,
like
they
bar
was full on restaurant.
So we'd go in there. I mean, I only ever drank there. I never ate, but you know, you'd go in there and you'd smoke and whatever. And then we're all active duty military, young 20s or whatever. So you just used to smoking inside. And me being from, you know, like the North Carolina area, that's just, hey man, everybody smokes inside. That's just what you do. So I just remember that age back then when they were like, hey, we just passed a law that come like 1 January, you can't smoke inside. Dude, I thought it was the end of the world. Like, I'm like, I don't know how businesses are going to survive, but you look at it, you know, 30 years later, man, that's like the best thing to happen.
So Josh, guess, I'll give you one guess. Mutual friend of the three of us, we all served in the same unit together, was a bouncer at the Mucky Duck. One guess.
Chuck.
DLI. Chuck. It was Chuck. And Chuck, there was a dude that worked in the Mucky Duck. Is the strongest human being I've ever seen. This guy was so dumb. He didn't know he shouldn't be able to lift this sort of weight. And I'd see him in the gym, right? Big, tall guy too. He wasn't short and stocky. He was tall. I mean, muscular as hell, but he was dumb and he was not learning a language. He was permanent party there. This guy was in the gym with the straight bar. Y'all know the straight bar that you bench with, right?
Yeah.
Without cheating, without any kind of arch in his back, he would load that thing up with 225, 45-pound plates on each side and curl that thing just for 20 reps. He was that strong.
Was that C.C. Fletcher?
Dude, this guy was a freak. And I saw, you know, I didn't know Chuck at the time, but we all knew, you know, I didn't know him because I hadn't served with him yet, but I knew him from the Mucky Duck and he was one of the cooler bouncers, right? So I'd come up at Chuck and I'd be like, dude, what's up with this other guy, Brett, man? Dude, that guy's strong as hell. And he goes, watch this, bro. He walks up to Brett, and Brett had this nice watch, like it wasn't a Rolex or anything, but nice for us as E4s and E5s. But it was a secondhand watch. So Charles goes, follow me, watch this. He goes, hey, Brett, dude, what time is it? This guy looks down at his secondhand watch, looks at it for a second, and just shows it to Chuck. Because he can't tell time. That's how dumb he was. That dude couldn't tell time on a second.
Holy cow. That's crazy. Wow.
I think old Chuck had a couple of sugar mamas out there, actually.
That doesn't surprise me.
Dude, he probably had a couple of sugar mamas everywhere.
So my boy, and this is impromptu. I had some other things we were talking about, a whole lot of things going on in the news. But so my boy comes home. He walked in the door about 10 minutes ago, and we still have the at-home COVID tests from like 5 years ago. Dude, he's got COVID.
All right, why did you even test?
So, well, we tested because
it's banned from YouTube.
It is, but we're good if we post some manifesto. I know, poor taste. The only reason we did it, like my daughter, because my daughter, you know, obviously she's a PA at a clinic. She was like, hey, you know, we're seeing a spike in this. She's like, this is probably what he's got. Cause he was calling earlier today and he's like, yeah, I've got this and that. I'm not feeling good. My daughter's like, it's probably COVID. She's like, it's going around. That's what I'm seeing right now. So he came home. We're like, yeah, you know, cause I like the rest of us. He's like, yeah, I'll just sleep for a couple of days and get over it. But you know, he doesn't necessarily have the liberties. He's got to, you know, go into an office, you know, type job. So we took one of the at-home tests, which is expired. But it's like, you know, they really expire. So anyway, it's positive. I don't even know what like you know, I guess I told him because he's like, what do I do? Because he has the ability to work from home. It's like, well, you know what? You call your boss. It's like, hey man, my sister's a physician. This is what's, you know, this is what happened. This is what I test. I would like to work from home the next couple of days. But if you tell me no, I'm coming in the office. That's just what's going to happen, and I'm assuming that his boss will just let him work from home, maybe. But I don't even know. Is there a policy now for if you test positive in the federal government anymore? You just come to work?
Oh, I don't know with the federal government. No idea.
Couldn't tell you. Nope. Couldn't tell you.
I know at the local government I work at, there is no policy whatsoever. No,
just use your PTO or whatever.
No, it's like if you're sick, don't come in. There's no COVID test policy, nothing.
Well, no, I'm just saying though, but you just use your PTO, use your sick leave or whatever if you stay home.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you are, right? Shouldn't even. So if you can do your job from home, like if you're a utility worker, yeah, you're going to have to use PTO. You can't work from home as a utility worker. But if you can legitimately do some work from home, you're probably good working from home for a day and a half, 2. They're pretty reasonable about that. It's not bad. You know what they should do though? You know what the municipal government should do is they should buy stock in Intel is what they should do, because that seems like a really good move, right, Josh?
Might as well dive on in. Go ahead and dive on in.
I think it's an absolute terrible idea.
Why? Josh, I mean, hey, could get really profitable, make the government some money, cut down on the deficit,
Yeah.
What's the downside?
Because that money will absolutely go toward the paying off the deficit. What they make. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't see a big deal with the federal government owning percentages and of private companies. Yeah, hey man, it's full steam ahead, I guess.
Hey, just think about it this way, Josh. Let's say that the federal government bought into NVIDIA, who has the highest market cap in the world right now, at $2, right? And now it's worth how much? What's the market cap of NVIDIA? It's in the trillions, right? I think. I mean, we could put that toward our debt, man. Like, come on. If we would have bought, here's an idea. How about a capitalist government, a republic, buy completely all controlling shares of a company that goes crazy and makes a ton of money? I mean, I don't see what the problem with that.
Right? Yeah. You guys remember back in
we
the day,
did. It's called Amtrak.
Yeah.
And Solyndra.
Yeah, Solyndra. Yeah, Solyndra. Guess where they're at now?
And USPS.
So back in the day, when Louisiana was like, we won a state lottery, right? And a lot of states were coming out and they had their own lotteries, and everybody was like, I don't know, lottery. People playing the lottery. The majority of people who play the lottery probably should take that money that they're playing the lottery with, and I don't know, put it in a good mutual, a good Vanguard account and just sit on it. Probably be a lot better idea. And they were like, no, but we'll use the revenue to pay for roads and schools. And then everybody was like, because that sounded right. That sounded good. It played to their feelings. It's like, well, what's the worst that could happen with a government company, government investing in in a private company and owning shares. And so what did the Louisiana state legislature do after they passed the law to establish the lottery? They came back and passed another law and said that money that's generated by the lottery doesn't have to be used only for schools and roads anymore. So, yeah, man.
It's discretionary now.
Yeah. So, hey, dude, whatever the government wants to do. Yeah. Hey, man, go ahead. You want to buy private companies and own private companies? Go ahead. I mean, I think owning the means of production, though. I don't know. I read that. God, I can't remember where I read that at.
DOS something.
Yeah. I don't know. It's I gotta update. Gotta update some stuff when we talk about how communism came about.
Well, Roger. But is it a good idea though? I mean, if you're purely out for yourself, you're not, just ideological. Because I actually don't agree with it either. For a number of reasons. Oh, by the way, the federal government, for y'all who aren't tracking the news, came out and bought.
Well, they didn't buy.
I don't know. What
it was given to them.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a certain amount of shares of the company Intel.
10%.
10% of Intel. It's there's no control.
Non-voting.
The government's non-voting. No nothing. And it's like on the surface, it's like, oh, cool, until you think about it for half a second. You're like, this is not good because now it's too big to fail. It's absolutely too big to fail now.
100%.
And, you know, it seems, again, surface level seems like a good idea, but I think it sets a bad precedent. And we've done this before, like Roger was saying, USPS, Solyndra, it happened during the financial crisis, all this stuff. And it harkens back, like Josh is saying, to communism, or at least socialism, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not communism, but socialism. It's a step in that direction, which I'm against. I just, I don't know what Trump's thinking. I really don't. Maybe there's more to it than that. I don't know.
So the market cap, the net worth right now of Intel is approximately 108 billion. Right. So the federal government now owns 10% of that. But like you said, it's too big to fail. So basically what you did was you took, Fannie Mac and Freddie Mae, and you're like, they will never, ever, ever go away because the federal government's not going to, they're not going to eat 10% of 108 billion. It's not going to do it. They're just going to subsidize it with your tax dollars. If, Intel ever makes, really poor business decisions and starts to go under, they're just going to be like, no, man, we're going to take tax dollars and keep this thing afloat. Just like they did with, the banks and, the Freddie Macs and Fannie Mae's back in 2009.
And I looked into it, every time Josh, I'm sorry, Roger, I'll kick right to you, but every time, Josh has a reaction, I'm like, okay, let me do some history work here, And so I immediately go to AI, either ChatGPT or Grok, and I was like, has this ever happened before? And the answer is yes. This has happened a lot in the past. And you know what? They all have in common. Every time this has happened, it hasn't turned out well. It's either been because somebody screwed up and the government had to step in, or it was maybe not outright shares, but subsidies, like Solyndra, for instance. It's just never worked out well. And it's like, but this time it is. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I think in principle, I don't like any of it. The problem is that's not the operating environment that we're working with. The first time it happened was in 1792, and Alexander Hamilton was the one who orchestrated that. It's happened time and time again. Everything from AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Savings and Loan. Remember that? Bear Stearns, GM. They forced Ford to pay, to take money. I actually have a bigger problem with, and I think I just heard it today, when I thought we bought 10% of Intel, like I didn't have a problem with that. I mean, outside of the overall principle, and then like Josh mentioned, well, the U.S. government didn't buy that. Like our taxpaying dollars bought that, right? Like it's not U.S. government money. I would have rather just had that money back.
But I don't get the revenue off that.
Right. You don't get the revenue off of it. But I think I have more heartache hearing that Intel gave the government 10%, in principle, I'm against all of it. In principle, I'm against bailouts and all that stuff. But the problem is it's just not the way we operate. And we haven't operated that way since Alexander Hamilton. So it's like, hey man, do you run the risk of, government controlled, or economic inputs? Now, well, one, you know what, we're there already anyway, not to say that it's right or wrong. But it's like a lot of that stuff is already being done behind or under the surface, and some of it outright. I think the one difference with this is when you look at, and I'd have to remember with Solyndra, that might be a little bit different case, a little bit smaller, but when you look at AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, SNL, Bear Stearns, we all did that when they were already failing, right? When we bought the failing bonds in 1792, those were businesses that were already failing. When you look at Intel, I'm hoping there's more of a strategic play there. One, they're not failing, but there are issues with the CEO, right? There are issues with the CEO and his ties to communist China, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So, I don't know how much of that is resolved. I don't know how much of that, because right now the big thing is semiconductors, it's chips. And even with TSCM being built over here, it's still Taiwan. So we have to find some way to kind of have some control over that. But, I kind of want to dovetail, and you guys can, go back to this thing. It was initially 600,000 students. And then I hear that it's been reduced to 300,000 students. What is the play to allow, and Trump's, well, I've heard him back it, 300,000 Chinese students into the U.S. outside of, now what I've heard is, while a lot of the smaller universities will go bankrupt. Okay, well, you know what? It just kind of is what it is, right? Look at your business model. But what is the play for that? Like, I don't understand it. Unless, look at it from an Intel side. I mean, I would hope, and we know the answer to this. I would hope from an Intel side, hey, there are some things that we can be doing, which I'm not confident we'll do any of those. So I don't know. We'll throw it to Josh.
No, that hope is not a COA. The number should be 0, and we should be deporting all of the Chinese students that are here right now. They should all be sent home, every single last one of them. We should not have one, not one. I don't know what the play is. My best guess would be at some point, we got something in a trade deal that benefited us for allowing that. That is the only logical explanation that I can think of, because other than that, there are no logical explanations. Not at the rate that China is committing espionage in every sector that we
Right.
have in this country. There's no justifiable reason other than we got something that benefited us on the trade deal. That's all I can think of.
I agree. I mean, everything he said. This has to be part of a bigger deal, and we all know that Trump likes making deals, but it better be a hell of a deal. The three of us come
Yeah,
from an intelligence background, and this this is not good from an intelligence standpoint. But take intelligence aside, all the IP theft that's going to be involved in, like, it's just in the smaller universities, that's even worse news. Because universities are money making systems. You get smaller universities, quote unquote, like Texas Tech, West Texas A&M University. They're gonna jump on that because they pay a full ride at those universities, and it does bring in a lot of money.
Right.
Although a university administrator I talked to a couple of weeks ago said bringing in foreign students, whether they're Chinese, Brazilian, whatever, does create a lot of problems for the university with administration and funding and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, just beyond the intelligence side of it, I see 300,000, college admissions that aren't going to U.S. students or countries that we have really good relationships with. Like, if we had to do this to save, the smaller universities, why does it got to be China? Like, I don't
yeah.
understand all the Indian hate lately, the dot Indian hate, because there's a lot of that hate going around lately. I don't get it. But why not India? Why not anybody else, really? Why not North Korea?
Well, I think you're seeing a lot of the Indian hate has to do with the fact that companies like Microsoft,
Yeah.
turned around and they laid off a bunch of American workers, and within a week later, those positions were advertised, for H-1B visas, right? And so
Yeah.
that you got that. Do you see have you seen the latest 2 18-wheeler accidents?
Yeah. Yeah. There were two. I only saw one.
Yep.
Well, okay, so
Yeah.
the second one,
The
to be
one in
fair, was
Florida,
not
I
an
think.
accident.
Or
Right. So the first one was the Indian driver who was here illegally, who California issued a CDL to, made an illegal U-turn from the right-hand lane, and a family in a van ran under it and it killed them. All right. So that one. Well, they just stopped somebody, I think yesterday, and I saw it's on X, and it's all a bunch of law enforcement websites. So in Arkansas, this guy was RAJ Trucking, was driving the wrong way across a major bridge in an 18-wheeler. And so, like, the cops, stopped. They stopped traffic everywhere, and then it took 2 of them to pull this dude out of the cab because he didn't want to get out of the cab. And then, they pull him out of the cab, and he's a dot, right? And you look, it's Raj Trucking. Well, the guy was drunk. And come to find out, guess who ain't supposed to be here? That guy. So it's, hey, man, how many H-1B visas have we given up to folks, to come here to take American jobs? How many Indians are here illegally? Because here's what happens. And, so a couple of the X accounts really dug into it, and they posted receipts and everything. It's basically pick your business, right? So take the 7-Eleven down on the corner, and you get 1 or 2 H-1B visa workers in there or somebody comes over here and after they get naturalized, that becomes a H-1B visa mill, right? So they are sponsoring, family member after family member after family member and everybody that's in their caste system to come here for a job. And then they get farmed out everywhere. And guess who, in the current climate for the last 4 years, guess who got the job and got hired? Not people that look like us. Well, not people that look like Luke and I. So
Well, I would argue, yeah. I think that your your the most recent point you made about the jobs, I think that's where the hate came from. It's just the two accidents that have recently happened. I think just exacerbated it. It's definitely a problem with the H-1B thing. At the last private sector company I work with, I'm not allowed to say on air because Roger doesn't like that for whatever reason. You saw it all the time. They were no, I won't. They were farming out a lot of IT jobs to India. I mean, it was just very obvious. They were good, and these weren't low paying. Answer the phone and work out your basic, turn your computer off and on. Those actually went to the Americans, believe it or not. At least they seemed American on the phone. It was the higher end, level 3 type, jobs that were, these Indian people had to get up at or stay up until, 4 a.m. to, get on a call. So it's like, yeah, I don't agree with it. I understand it, because if you can get that person, because these people weren't idiots and they're probably getting paid in the six figures. But if you can get a high end IT person, for 140 versus 225. I mean,
yeah,
if you're a publicly traded company, I mean, like, what choice do you have? It's a pickle, is what it is, and it goes back to who's going to pick your lettuce and all that stuff. It's a problem. It's a problem, and that's
yeah.
I
Well,
don't agree with it. I'm not saying it's right. I just it's a problem.
yeah. Well, the private company that I used to work for, we had the exact same thing, and it was in the IT department, right? And software development and stuff like that. And hey, I got to travel back to India, and I'm going to be there for 30, 45 days because I got to renew all my stuff, right? And then work remote from there. And so you're in Okta, trying to lock things down and stuff like that to try and protect your intellectual property while they're overseas. But some of the things that we found was job interviews, right? So you interview somebody. Well, you're doing a virtual interview. I mean, it got to the point to where it was like, I need you to pan the camera around the entire room because they would throw people up there. The person that you talked to was not the person doing the work, right? You'd have one person and they would sit there and they would, because they spoke the best English or whatever. They're not the one they're not the qualified candidate. They have somebody in the room coaching them through the answers, and it was, I mean, it was bad. And so, but you're sitting here and you're paying this one person, 140. They're paying for other people to actually do the work. And so you got people in your systems that aren't vetted. You don't know who they are. And so it's just, again, man, like it was an issue. It was a big issue.
Dude, you just
Multiple
blew my
times.
mind. You just blew my mind because my job at this private company was not counterintelligence. It wasn't. It was more security, right?
Yep.
And what you said makes so much sense because we would get these guys on with this highly technical IT type question, like a coding, they got to design a new API. And we would ask the question. Their English wasn't great, which, by the way, if Britain had never been in India, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The only reason India is in the market
100%.
right now, the only reason India is in this market, not China, is because they all learn English. A lot of them, probably half the Indian population knows English. But anyway, we would ask a question, like a kind of a technical question, and there would be a long pause. A
100%.
long pause. Like maybe a 30-second pause. Okay, just a minute. Okay, just a minute. Okay,
Yeah.
just a minute. And then they'd come back with the answer. Like someone was, oh, dude, man, Josh just blew my mind, everybody. And Josh doesn't do that often. Well, he does, but that's crazy, dude. Now it's
Whatever.
all like the veil has been lifted. It's like unbelievable. So that corporate security, the company I was working for, not so good. Not
Dude,
so good.
we worked pretty close with our recruiters, trying to identify that. and prevent that. Because I was part of a working group with a bunch of other companies, kind of CI types and stuff like that. And there was things discussing, and that came to us like, hey, this is what we just found out. So we took it back and was like, okay, we need to, keep an eye on for that. And we absolutely found it multiple times. And it was just, and so, but you got that, they're here in the States. A lot of these dudes, again, they're overstaying visas, stuff like that. By and large, I genuinely don't care until you start taking jobs away from American citizens, right? And I get the companies outsourcing stuff like that. Well, guess what? There's a stick to that, right? That's fine. You want to outsource your jobs, not a problem. Your tax rate just doubled. You want to go outside the United States, for employees? Fine, not a problem. You absolutely can do that. Your tax rate just doubled. Go explain that to your shareholders. So
Yeah, totally agree. And that's, it goes back to tariffs, right? That's the whole point of tariffs. The point of tariffs is to, one, protect your domestic manufacturing. And I think you can extend that, just, what you guys are both saying, and more specifically, Josh, that also goes to labor. So yeah, you want to go hire and of the H-1B visas, I think so we issue roughly 1.5 million a year, and 75% of them are to India and Indians. So, but point being is, I understand it from the business aspect that, hey, the labor is going to be cheaper, and that's going to, obviously your profit will be higher, and the shareholders get more money. But that's where, if the government is going to step in with that stuff, that's how you do it. You do it through tariffs, and you do it through taxes, and like, yeah, you want to go hire non-Americans, that's fine. You're going to pay 30% on top of that, right? Or whatever that number is. And that's what I think Trump is trying to do with the tariffs. And, it's very, very complicated when you talk about the economy. We've already talked, about, bailouts and, quantitative easing and the labor market. I mean, it's complicated, and there is no one solution that's going to fix everything. I mean, in a lot of these cases, it's become so complicated that all you can do is, what's the lesser of two evils, right? So right now, you look at the Fed with their meeting, they're really focused on the labor market. So it's like, hey, how do you tell American companies not to go out and outsource and hire from, India and these other places for 1/3 the price? Well, you make it more expensive. And that's the whole point of tariffs. You make it more expensive to go buy outside or import. So what happens? You're forced to hire from the inside. And then what's going to happen there, because of our labor laws? That's how you're going to get increased wages, right? Inflation is going to happen every year. That's just a matter of fact. We've talked about this during the last administration and this one as well. Inflation happens every year. You're just looking at the rate of inflation, and the preferred rate of inflation for the Fed is right about 2%. And you have plus or minus, you have some ups and some downs. Hopefully you don't have the 9% that Biden had. But the idea is, hey, your labor market is strong here in the U.S. If you're forced to hire U.S. workers, we do have federal wages, especially at the state level. You're going to have escalation every year, and you hope that escalation is over the 2%. So that way, hey, escalation is 3% on your labor. The inflation's at an ideal 2%. Hey, you at least get a 1% pay raise every year. And I think off the top of my head, I don't have the stats in front of me. I think during Trump's first administration, we had seen some like record wage growth, and I think that's what he's trying to do with a lot of this stuff now, is bring a lot of this back. Now, the India thing is going to be a problem, because I thought you were actually with the two accidents. So it was three. I thought you were talking about the dude that was on the cell phone.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that one,
bro. He's driving down like the interstate, and you see him on one. So if I'm going to do that dash cam will not survive. I'm just letting you know that right now. But there's a dash cam watching him. He's down there texting. You can see, he looks up and down every couple, seconds, and then he looks down and like he doesn't look back up, right? And so it's like 5, 6, 7 seconds or whatever it is. He plows through like this Ford Pinto with like, I think there was a family in it, dude. And it's an 18-wheeler going 75 miles an hour. Like the dude looks up and is like, "Oh, what happened? Like you just went over a speed bump." Yeah, you just killed an entire family back there. I mean, it's insane, dude. It's
law of gross tonnage there.
And then you get like with the one in California, it's like, so that dude that had the CDL issued by California, they said that when they arrested him, they had to bring an interpreter because he did not understand or speak enough English to be able to communicate with law enforcement.
Yeah, and they gave him a road test or a sign test, and he only passed like 1 out of 5, something like that. He only identified like 1 out of 5 signs correctly, or something
Yeah.
like that. It's absurd, man. It's absolutely absurd.
But got a CDL in California. Got a CDL
Yeah.
in California.
How many non-English speakers or English as a second language speakers, illegal alien, do you think have CDLs? Before like maybe a year ago, I would have been like, dude, no, a CDL, like that's a process. Now,
Apparently a lot more than we thought.
yeah, now, dude,
I'd say over a quarter on the road. That's what I would say. Well, I'm speaking from somebody who lives in Texas and Roger's in Arizona, so maybe that's a little skewed. But these are long haul drivers, so going back to a point one of you guys made, it's like, why are the car insurance rates, so damn high in San Antonio, Texas? Why are they so damn high in Laredo? I don't know about El Paso, but Laredo, Del Rio, down to the Rio Grande Valley, you guys know why those rates are so high. Because there are so many uninsured drivers driving. And it goes back to what Josh is saying. There are hidden costs to these things. You allow these things to happen. The rest of us have to shoulder the burden. I think San Antonio has the highest rate of uninsured drivers in the United States. I'm pretty sure that's probably still the case. It was when I lived there.
wow.
And I think it still is now. My stepson, this dude drives the car I used to drive. It's a 2000, I don't know, 11 or something like that, maybe 12, Toyota Tacoma. The thing is not worth much. Let's put it that way. But it is still running. The insurance rate, but because he's in San Antonio going to school, the insurance rate on that Tacoma is more than our brand new car. It's crazy. More than our brand new car. Yeah.
Now,
well, not brand new. The brand new used car we bought. Not that.
Does his age have anything to do with it?
It does a bit, but he's got a clean record. He's got a completely clean record. The thing is, it's all tables. It's not actuary tables, but it's all tables. Go ahead, Roger.
So we have roughly 3 million interstate CDL drivers. You're not going to believe this. An estimated 1.2 million non-English speaking CDL holders.
Almost half.
Holy cow.
Holy cow. Possible? Dude, even in Germany.
There's one state here, and I'm not going to go through all the articles. One state here, they were doing like a snapshot, whatever. They found that 40% of them couldn't speak English.
So that family, right? The family that got killed in Florida, the family that Roger talked about, they should be able to sue those states into oblivion, right? Because there's absolutely no reason those CDLs should have been issued. You shouldn't be able to get a driver's license, period. Any driver's license, much less a CDL. Dude, because like he said, dude, that's an 18-wheel, that's an 18-wheel missile. Moving at 75 miles an hour, dude, that's a juggernaut. You're not stopping. They should be able to sue those states into oblivion. That's the only way that's
how you stop it.
That's the only way.
So I'm not devil's advocate, but it's like, let's take a step back and look at this, right? Is the reason those 3 accidents happened is because they didn't speak English? I don't know, right? Number one. And number two, or maybe they all did speak English, whatever. But what does their race really have to do with anything, or their immigration status? I'm just being devil's advocate. I'm not saying I agree with this. And number two, how many other accidents are there throughout the United States? And why is this being shoved down our throats? Because I guarantee you today alone, multiple people were killed by CDL drivers across this nation. I guarantee it.
Because it goes back
Oh,
to
and that's
illegal immigration. It's people that
Okay.
should not be on the road.
exactly
And prime
100%.
example, my mom was in an accident like 15 years ago here in Arizona.
Whoa. Careful, Roger. Careful. Don't
What?
incriminate anybody here.
No, she was
I'm
guilty. She
sure.
knew she did it. She
No, I'm
was
saying her immigration status.
oh no, she's good, man. We're legals.
Oh,
I mean, I do worry about getting deported one day, but anyway, she made a U-turn, got hit by a truck full of illegals. Now she was like, yeah, she probably failed to yield, whatever. She took ownership of that. And I agreed with her when the state trooper came in with the argument was, so one, that person didn't have insurance, didn't have a driver's license, so was probably here illegally, should not have been on the road. And that's the point, right? Now, again, are accidents going to happen? Yes. Americans, we have thousands of accidents a day and this and that, but it goes back to like the girl out in California who was shot out in the pier in San Francisco. It's like, hey, enough of them happen anyway. We don't need any help with people that aren't supposed to be here and shouldn't be on the road to begin with. Right?
Ooh. I just said in the chat, I said, my mom is going to hear what I just said and give me an earful because my mom loves Roger's mom so much. Like, he's one of her favorite people in the world. So, speaking of people who shouldn't be here, okay, and if y'all got more to say on the other thing, go ahead. But speaking of people who probably shouldn't be here, and by here, I mean maybe walking the streets in public, maybe instead of walking the streets in public, maybe they should be, like Josh says, involuntarily put in some kind of institution. Let's talk about the shooting that probably should have never happened today.
Oh,
dude, did we call that or what?
Well, I'm really anxious to get into this because I really want the listeners to hear what we have to say about probably maybe the root cause of why this and so many other of these shootings happen. But again, maybe Josh, I'm sure you were tracking the event pretty close, right? I mean, you kind of know what happened, but you know what happened.
Yeah, I know what happened. We're now back to 0 days of, without trans violence. So a troon, shot up a Catholic school. I think, what was it? Two kids got killed. There was like over a dozen injured in it.
Yeah, I think like 17 injured or something like that.
Yeah,
last I read. I
can't remember the exact numbers, but of course, they tried to deep six the social media very quickly and everything. But I glanced, some of the posts of, the social media account that this individual had, and dude, like how do we? Here's like, it's crazy. Right? It takes so long to, do X, Y, and Z, this, that, and the other. They can find somebody who posts something on the internet quickly. They'll go out and arrest somebody, in another country. That guy had posted all sorts of stuff about what he was going to do. Like, he was going to, assassinate the president. Like, I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. The amount of it was everywhere. And it was like, how did nobody see this and make a phone call? How did nobody see this and tag, pick your law enforcement agency and be like, hey, you guys might want to go check this dude out because like this he's very vocal about what he's doing, about what he wants to do. And he's posting it all over the place. Like that should have prompted, a visit or something. And it probably did. We'll probably find out here, soon. And it may already be out there again. I got busy and wasn't tracking all of it. But, it wouldn't surprise me if it came back and, like you said, I think you guys posted on, on X or something. It's like, say the line, FBI, say the line. We knew about him, or, whatever.
It was on our radar.
So yeah, it's on the radar. But yeah, dude, you know what? Here's the thing: Trump had started to do it, and then you didn't hear a whole lot about it. Where he was going to open the insane asylums back up, open up the insane asylums, and put all these people in it. because that's where they belong. 100%. Involuntarily institutionalized. Guess what? You're going to go to a place where you're just going to be happy, and we're going to put you on lithium, and you live out the rest of your days drooling on yourself. And be
Well,
done
and the
with it.
sad part about it is, as soon as the news comes out, we get our text group here, and we automatically put in there, it's going to be like, hey, it's going to be some transgender that, was probably forced to go to church as a kid and hates everybody and this and that. And, a white transgender, and you say it tongue in cheek, but the sad thing is, I mean, you're almost always right. I remember when we first heard some of this news with a shooter several years ago, and it's like, yep, it's going to be some white liberal, transgender, da 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 da. I think it might have been Nashville.
The one in Nashville, yeah, the one in Nashville.
My wife and mother are like, well, how do you know that? I'm like, just wait for it. And today, once we found out that he had tracked himself and the identity still wasn't released, it's like, yeah, man, the longer this, you've already confirmed it for us. We know.
Yeah, it's a tranny.
Yeah, and it goes back to SSRIs, right? And it's funny because when I was asking Grok about all that, well, we don't really track all that. And it's not. Here's the deal, when you look at SSRIs, and I haven't done a whole, as much research as what Luke has, but clearly they are either causing or not working, right? Because if SSRIs are used to treat like depression and this and that, and you still have people going out there shooting up schools and churches or whatever, well, clearly it's not working the way it's supposed to be working. Okay. Or it's not working the way it's supposed to be working and causing these people to do that. Now, I don't know if there's causation there or whatever. One way or another, it ain't doing its job. Right.
100%. He nailed it. It's like, we start talking about, because, and these two guys agreed, when I threw this in the chat, they're like 100%, it's like people are losing, what I say, they're losing the
ball,
plot.
The plot.
Yeah, they're losing the plot. They lost the ball in the sun when it's like it's trans. Well, you look at the trans community, right? And we've said it. The DSM-4 used to say it's a mental disorder. It's a mental disorder caused by X, Y, Z, multiple causes, but usually they're manic depressives, bipolar, things like that. It's mental illness is what it is. Mental illness caused this, not necessarily the trans movement. The trans movement just opened up their arms to people with mental disorders is what it did and normalized it. So I guarantee you, the media says, oh, this is dangerous. Oh, this is dangerous. And thank God for Elon Musk and all this stuff that's happened, because this very well still to this day, this episode may be taken off YouTube, because what we're saying right now is that, yeah, I don't have proof that this person took SSRIs, but I have a pretty good indication that this person was probably depressive. I have a pretty good indication that the guy who tried to unalive Trump in Florida was probably on SSRIs. I am pretty sure that Dylan Roof, was that his name? The guy in
that we still don't know a lot about.
Yeah, I guarantee that guy was on SSRIs. Oh, and by the way, when you take SSRIs, you also have to be on an antipsychotic. You have to be. They're prescribed together. So it's like, yeah, I can't prove any of this stuff. But I'll tell you this. I was at a seminar one time where the Las Vegas County Sheriff's Department came in along with the FBI, and they gave a full rundown of the Las Vegas shooter, right? In a room filled with hundreds of cops, right? And they gave a pretty good rundown of the whole thing. And they're very open about most everything that happened. So they came time to ask questions. And me, the non-Leo, sitting in the back, dorky intel guy, raised my hand and said, what was the toxicology report? They said, she got up there. It was the sergeant. She was a sergeant at the time on the scene who ran the emergency response. She goes, oh, the toxicology came back clean. I was like, really? I said in front of everybody, really? And she goes, yes, it was clean. And I was like, okay. So, they wrapped it up, and, they're all up there. And I took my chance. I went up to her and I was like, hey, that's kind of shocking. The toxicology report was completely clean. So he didn't have anything in his system. She's like, oh, well, he had antidepressants and antipsychotics. And I'm like, that's what I was asking. Clean. That's what I was asking. And she goes, oh, I didn't realize. I thought you were asking like cocaine or LSD. And I'm like, no, my My point is the root cause of this stuff. Roger said it best. I'm just repeating what he said. Something's not working here. Something's not working. It's a serious problem. It's a serious industry. And, I think it's as bad or worse than the opiate crisis. I really do. And we're seeing that firsthand. So everybody don't get all caught up on this trans stuff. Get more caught up on what was the root cause of this? What was the root cause? It wasn't that this guy was misguided and thought he was a girl. That's not the root cause. That's not why he went up and shot. Dude, in that video, I don't know if those videos are still up. It's like that guy was a freaking maniac. It was spooky. You watch that video, it's like, this is a problem. And he was writing in Cyrillic. He was writing in Russian. What's up with that?
Well, here's the other thing. You fart anything that sounds like COVID, and YouTube takes our stuff down. And Josh was alluding to this earlier when he started this segment. If you send out a silent but deadly and it almost sounds like COVID, YouTube will flag it, identify it, take it down. We've had it done several times, right? And Josh mentioned all these videos of this guy that were out there and like never got flagged. I mean, dude, I put a post on X, and if you put the word shoot in there or anything like that, it gets flagged, right? But somehow this guy's manifesto, hours of video or whatever it is, just kind of hangs out on YouTube for a while and nothing gets flagged. Like we need that guy's filter. I think they're shadow banning C3. We need that guy's filter, dude.
That dude had a channel. That guy had a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know for sure,
point,
but he had a channel. And did you guys see any of the videos when they were still up on X this morning?
I saw some stills.
Saw
from
like
it.
two, yeah.
Dude,
well, I know like one of them had a drawing of the church, right?
Yeah.
And like here are the pews and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, guys, like seriously, like really?
Dude, when I was watching this stuff, Josh, I mean, his journal, and I had to like freeze frame and zoom in on it because that's Cyrillic. And I start reading it and I was like, that's Russian. He's speaking in Russian or he's writing in Russian. And the stuff he was writing was just like he was almost demonically possessed. It was freaking weird, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what it reminded me of, though? It reminded me of the movie Seven. Remember when they found all his journals and stuff? Oh,
Yeah.
God, it was creepy as hell.
Yeah, and there was that one. I saw some of the Cyrillic writing, and then there was like a sketch of him standing in front of that demonic statue, and that's what he was. He was talking to it, well, in his words. Somebody had translated it, and it was basically like, what do I need to go do this? And it's just like, again, you're right. That had nothing to do with him being trans, but that absolutely had to do with him needing to be in an institution, right? Not walking amongst us. But it's an epidemic.
I'm going to throw you
treating
another
the symptoms
curveball.
and not the cause.
I'm going to throw you another curveball, going all the way back to like what are the true root causes to this stuff, right? Some people are born with mental disorder. I get it, right? But all I'm seeing, and this has kind of disappeared from X, right? But all I'm seeing is posts about his mom. And his mom, they had one picture of her. I can't find it anymore. Looked, she's wearing the glasses. You can probably imagine. And there's nothing about the dad in there. I am going to go out on a limb right now and say the dad wasn't in the picture. And the mom was an enabler to his behavior. And it's like, you want to get down to root causes? You know what I'm saying?
What you mean? People who don't grow up in a household with a mom and dad who are both attentive and disciplinary. They tend to become a statistic. That's crazy talk, Luke. That's
crazy talk. I know. I have some weird ideas.
You mean
Roger's fact?
You mean people tend to adjust and do well in life when they have a nuclear family structure at home and have dinner together every night? What?
Let me back up real quick, and let me caveat this, and I'll push over to Roger because he's fact checking us as we speak. I can see him doing it. There was one time, I'll tell this quick story because there are exceptions to the rule. Right?
Sure.
And we were riding around with James where we nearly had to smoke that Iraqi dude. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so we're in Erbil, and this freaking stud of a kid, man, Ranger Regiment, Humanter freaking dude, just a great kid. Wish that kid was my son. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, what a great kid. And his brother was a Green Beret. And it's just like, man, you got, and we talked a lot. So James and I worked together quite a bit. And he was raised by a single mom. His dad passed away when he was, less than 1 year old. His brother was like 3. His mom, a librarian, raised two of the biggest, freaking knuckle dragging, America's finest knuckle draggers on the face of the earth. So there are exceptions to the rule,
100%.
but it can be done. But there
Yeah.
were values in that household. There were values behind, his mom and his late father's relationship, and she followed through. So there are exceptions to the rule, of course, because I know maybe we have some listeners who, and most of our listeners, pretty good people. Maybe they were in the same situation. So we're not shitting on everybody. It's just there is a pattern,
Yeah. Again, that's like you said, steps to the rule, right? So I mean, you look at Chuck. He didn't become a product of his environment, right? He's wildly successful, and but he could have easily taken the other path, right? So there are exceptions to the rule, as you say, for sure. But it's like a lot of other things, man. There's you've got to figure it out. You got to figure it out pretty quick. So all right, Roger, drop facts.
No, I wasn't fact checking. I just something came across on X here. So it looks like some things are picking up on John Bolton. So for those that are not familiar, with what happened, basically the FBI raided his home, and I think they hit his office.
His office
right?
too.
I don't know if they hit his home as well. Is that correct?
Yeah,
both of them.
Yeah, they went to his house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of speculation. Of course, they left automatically. It's like I think they forget that they tried to impeach Trump twice, and tried to put him in prison. Like they forget about none of that ever happened over the last couple of years, right? That, oh, this is uncalled for, without even knowing what's going on, and even us, right? Like we're no fans of Bolton, but at the same time, it's like, dude, I haven't seen the search warrant. Obviously a judge signed off on it in Maryland, if I'm correct about that. But it's like, hey, you don't even know what's in it yet. So just kind of sit back, let happen, what's going to happen and whatever. So now some info is coming out. The investigation of President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, began to pick up momentum during the Biden administration when U.S. intelligence officials collected information that appeared to show that he had mishandled classified. The U.S. gathered data from an adversarial country spy service, including emails with sensitive information that Mr. Bolton, while still working in the first Trump administration, appeared to have sent to people close to him on an unclassified system. It's actually making its way all over. Yeah, well, and that's what we were looking at the other day. It's because there are some visits that he's got to some pretty high, political elites and Qatar. And I think the in between the lines here is that he may have been selling some of that stuff. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but I think reading between the lines, he may have actually been selling it, which goes beyond just what he put in his book. So anyway, more to follow on that, man. We'll see how that shakes out.
I do want to stick with Bolton, but I do want to read this. I presented it here, but I want to read this out loud. According to court records, Robin Westman's mother applied to change her child's name in 2019 from Robert Paul Westman to Robin M. Westman in Dakota County because she identified as a female. Because Westman was a minor at the time, her mother had to sign off on the change. According to the application, Westman identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. Come on, bro. We call this stuff so often. It's like, oh, but you don't have the proof, C3. You don't know. You got to wait for the facts to come out. Man, sometimes what we've learned, I think the three of us, sometimes you don't have to wait for the facts to come out. Sometimes you can just make the damn call. Good Lord, dude.
It's called predictive analysis. Based on historical patterns and information. It's like, oh, look, hey, you know what, man? It smells like a duck. It looks like a duck. It's walking like a duck. Sounds like a duck. I don't need to wait. I don't need to wait to see the bill and web feet. Be like, yeah, it's a duck, bro.
Probably the most proud thing, the piece of writing I'm most proud of, believe it or not, is that essay I post from time to time about circumstantial evidence, anecdotal, and slippery slope. I gave that to a colleague. I gave that to a colleague the other day because in a city council meeting they kept saying slippery slope, and I'm like, oh, dude, it's predictive analysis, like Josh said. That's what triggered my thought. Is like, dude, God gave us this ability to discern things quickly, like stereotyping, for instance, to save our ass, is what he did. So we don't have to wait for all the facts to come in. Because if you wait for all the facts to come in, a saber-toothed tiger is chewing on your brain. You know what I'm saying?
What makes you think? Hold on a minute. You don't know that saber-toothed tiger is going to pounce on you and maul you to death.
Yeah.
Well, let's wait to see what it does.
Luke's at the entrance to a cave. Hey, everybody, there's a saber-toothed tiger coming in here right now. Whoa, Luke. That's anecdotal evidence, because I'm only hearing you say it. And
how do you know? How do you know that it identifies as a saber-toothed tiger?
Yeah, or you hear a growling in the background, because you've heard a saber-toothed tiger growl over and over. You hear it in the darkness. You're like, hey, everybody in the cave, I hear a saber-toothed tiger growling. And they're like, well, that's just circumstantial evidence. Do you see it? It's like, God, dude, whatever, man. And
I love it.
Whatever. Gosh, what else? We're only in an hour. We've covered a lot of ground.
So what do you think about the Bolton news?
Bolton.
What do you think?
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I love it. You turn around and you take a look at John, you take a look at John Bolton, he's a war hawk. Number one, he's never met a war that he doesn't like. And, he's part of the foggy bottom crowd who, basically, like Joe Biden, has been wrong on every major foreign policy decision for the last 4 decades. And, the first Trump administration was very frustrating, because it wasn't just the Democrats that Trump was fighting against, at every turn. It was the GOP. And then, everybody came to realize pretty quick, hey, there's people in his own cabinet and his own administration, very close to him in his inner circle, that are working against him. And one of those people was John Bolton. And so, and then Bolton came out with his book, and it was, it was filled with, Trump's not a nice person. He's loud. It's like, yeah, you know what? Hey, man, Donald Trump is loud. He's a New Yorker. That's just, that comes with the territory. And, it's the Democrats, the mental gymnastics that the Democrats have had to go through over the last 8 years about, they hate John Bolton. He's lying. Everything he says is a lie. He's basically a Nazi, right? To, oh, John Bolton's book, it was great. You got to take it as the gospel, right? To back to, no, John Bolton's, if Trump picks him, it'll just be more of the same. And John Bolton's, bad. And now, poor John Bolton, he got his house raided, and, I wonder who, my question is this, right? I got one more thought on his house, but I want to ask this question. Who do you think the FBI agent was who had to go to his wife's underwear drawer? Who had to break out who had to open up that box of the pins? Oh, gross. Anyway.
I hope it's the same one that went through Melania's underwear drawer.
But it's just, and people, again, everybody knows, like, I'm a very, very big fan of lawfare. And I've been begging the Republicans and the conservatives to take it and start using it, start wielding it. And dude, when I saw it was like, oh shit, they raided John Bolton's house, I was like, yes, I love it. Dude, I don't care if that dude committed a crime or not. Raid his house. Drag him into court and bankrupt him. And guess what? Drag all these other people into court. Go get Susan Rice. Go get the rest of them. Drag them into court and tie them up in legal proceedings for the next 5 years and bankrupt every single one of them.
I'm torn on this lawfare thing. Not torn. I'm not torn. I was torn because, it's like Ben Shapiro says, and he makes a good point because he's a lawyer. He's like, you don't like Trump, Trump firing the Fed chair or with the Fed member over
governor,
governing body member, whatever, over allegations is bad. And it's like, on the surface, yes, that makes sense because she hasn't been convicted of anything yet. She has been convicted of mortgage fraud. legally, she's got a case saying, no, I'm not going to resign because, for cause, because nothing's been proven. I'm getting to the point, Josh. Don't worry. This lawfare thing, it's like, dude, we've crossed the Rubicon. Yes, this may come back on us because there ain't going to be a Republican president in forever. It may boom.
Nope.
It may very well boomerang into a much worse situation. But you know what? We can't worry about 3 years from now. We got to worry about right now, and that's how I view it. It's like that Rubicon has been crossed, and this is where I side with Josh. It's like you want to be the good guy who just does things, to be good, because and then you get your throat cut because you're playing by the rules while the other side has a knife behind their back. This is where I agree with you, Josh. It's like, dude, no, we got to get while the getting's good, and that's all there is to it. Because again, we have crossed that bridge. It's not the world we live in anymore. We don't live in whatever. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's been like this forever. We've just been playing by the rules too nice. Because you know what? Nixon shouldn't have resigned. Nixon got set up. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he played by the rules. He's like, oh, this is going to do the nation too much damage. I'm not going to fight against it because you know what I did? Yeah, it did cross the line. But it doesn't matter. He was set up. He knew he was behind the 8 ball. He knew it. That's why Trump's so great, dude. He fights back. He fights.
They tried to kill him twice. People are worried about lawfare and be like, well, the other side may use it. It's like they tried to kill him twice. Like, I don't know how much more. I don't know how much more you need to not be like, okay, yeah, no, the gloves have to come off. Again, it's like I've said it. I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it one more time. People have to understand that we're not playing by the Marquise of Queensberry rules anymore.
Ooh, don't tell Darren that. Tell Darren that. Darren is a 1978 Republican, and therefore he can never like Trump. Yeah, Darren, our listener.
No. I was going to speak directly to Darren.
Oh, go ahead, please,
Darren.
Because I drunk texted Darren the other night. And it was pretty embarrassing on my part. So go ahead,
Darren. I really appreciate the knife. I really do. It's awesome. It's pretty badass. But brother, I need you to get on board. Come on in for the big win, okay? Come on. All right, that's it. That's all I want to say.
There is a difference, though, right? I think when you look at lawfare, and so far, I mean, who knows how far this thing goes, but when you look at what the Democrats did to Trump, especially even when Trump was out of office, the majority of Americans, or at least a significant percentage of them, saw those actions as baseless, which I think all three of us would agree helped reelect him. I'm not sure that the majority or significant percentage sees what's going on right now as baseless. And I think as long as you can keep this stuff where, hey, it is, there's some foundation there. Like, hey, the mortgage fraud thing. Yeah, that pisses me off because, hey, the lady who is helping to determine what your mortgage rate is, keeping it at 7-8%, lied, committed mortgage fraud so she could have a cheaper rate.
Yeah.
Right. Just like Adam Schiff. And again, 5 years ago, mortgage fraud wasn't really brought up that, within the political realm, but they played the card first with Trump. And now, and I think it's genius what he's doing. And I love when they ask him about it. He's like, oh, was his office raided today? I have no idea, talking about the Bolton piece. But it's like, hey, you find that all these people, one, they're hypocrites, but here's the other thing. Here was the bigger play of this. And throw it to Josh. How many other folks other than Barry and Joe are sweating bullets, and have major GI problems right now? Because I'm telling you, that's the objective, right? It's the, hey man, oh shit, they just raided John Bolton stuff. Like if it's me, dude, Shred-X is going on right now. As soon as I saw that on Fox News, I'm like, it's Shred-X, brother.
Dude, I hope Michael Hayden, he is crapping his pants because if there's one person I can't stand
him and Brennan.
I hate Hayden worse than Brennan, and I hate Brennan a lot. Millie, I hate him, but Hayden is number one. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I would love to see Hayden get his house raided. So I will say, people come after me, and some of our listeners have come after me, in conversations about the whole me supporting the lawfare thing, and what's good for the goose is good for the gander and everything. And, it really started, and I was very, very vocal about it when Ron DeSantis went after Disney in Florida, right, with the Reedy Creek district and, their tax breaks and everything that Disney got that regular Floridians didn't get, right? And it's like, that's not fair. And so I thoroughly supported Ron DeSantis in that, and that kind of started my childhood. To be like, no, like we don't, like you said, this is not the world we live in anymore. It's it's just not that. So having said all that, I will say, to those listening, that I was told the other day that I was immoral, and my morality was called into question.
Your moral compass.
My moral compass was effed, I believe was the direct quote. And the craziest thing is why it was called a direct quote. So I made some just random posts every once in a while. I'll throw something out there just as a whatever, right? And it's one of those, like, you comment on something and it's, you say something dumb and you're like, yeah, dude, this is whatever. And next thing you know, like, that one takes off. But when you pontificate, it's something, it's got a little bit of deeper meaning to it, stuff like that, people just kind of ignore it. It's the algorithm, social media is so weird. So anyway, so I posted that, basically along the lines that, the Iraq war and, toppling Saddam was probably one of the worst foreign policy decisions, in history. And the John Boltons on X came after me. Like, there was a couple guys, they came after me and, basically told me that my moral compass was effed because Saddam was a dictator and needed to go. And so it's like, okay, so, of course you start off that conversation with, okay, well, like, what good came out of it? Because a lot of bad came out of it. There's nothing good that came out of removing Saddam's regime. No good came out of that. And they tried to explain to me that, the two little kids in this, photo from, from the GWAT, those kids probably aren't even alive anymore, right? That was justified the trillions of dollars, the hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths, and the tens of thousands of, U.S. service members' deaths and maimings, that it was all worth it for those two kids. And I was like, okay, so by your logic, then we need to invade every country with a dictator. So Russia, North Korea, Cuba, Iran. Like, so, hey, man, we're about to be very busy. I could never get a straight answer out of them other than my moral compass is effed because I didn't agree that Saddam needed to go. And I was like, okay, so again, let me get this straight. The hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths and, everything else I just named could have been avoided had we not done that. But my moral compass is effed. Okay, got it. So I and then the dude who wanted to fight me and then told me to have a blessed day. I was like,
oh yeah. He wanted to fight Josh. That's right. I would beat you up
happening?
Or something. I don't remember, because I think he did say where he was, where that picture was taken or whatever. But the point you made about those people may not be alive anymore, and they may have been swept up in all the ISIS stuff or the Shia on Sunni violence and how it goes back and forth. And it's like, we've said this on the podcast many times. On the macro level, that invasion did zero good. It caused more problems than it solved. Maybe that was the point for the military industrial complex. I doubt it, because nobody's that smart. On the micro level, it did great, because we've said this. All three of us have said this. It's like some of the best times of my life.
Yeah.
It's some of the best times of my life. I learned it shaped me into who I am, and, some of the best deployments ever. But, that's why a lot of veterans have a lot of problems, because, like, what was it all for, bro? It's the best times of my life, but for what? And we all three have learned that, man, the world needs dictators. And it sucks. It sucks for a lot of people who were under Saddam at the time. But it's like Josh said to that dude, you were told by an asset, when Saddam was in control, I had to watch what I said. I had to, watch my step, but I didn't have to worry about getting shot on the way to the supermarket, or the market. you know, it well, I'll tell you, I was a big believer. I was a big believer. Saddam's got to go. Saddam's got
yeah.
to go. But after having been there multiple times, it's like, boy, this place was a lot better off under Saddam. And,
Dude.
and geopolitically, it was because Iran didn't have a foothold there. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say that. Hey, man, 2025 Josh would kick 2005 Josh's ass. He'd be like, "You idiot." Because I was the same way, baby. I was like, "Oh yeah, let's go. We're doing this. We are about to finish what Bush Senior started, and oh buddy, we're about to get some." Oh yeah, dude, I loved it. Dude, 2005 Josh was an idiot. So dumb.
No,
So
2005
dumb.
Josh was an idiot. You're dealing with the info that we had at the time, right? Which was the WMDs and this and that. And, we know there's a history of chemical warfare over there. So when you have that versus where you're at now, or, what came out years after that, I mean, the intel changes. And then you realize that things were omitted and you were just lied to. And, it's really no different than what the CDC's done, which, by the way, all of their top
Oh
leadership
boy,
has just
here
been
we
fired.
go.
They're out. They're gone. Right.
What?
I love, and people, so the CDC, like all their top leadership is gone. Like I think they were all either fired or just resigned within like the last hour.
Oh, really? I wasn't tracking that.
It goes down to like, do people not realize what happened over the last 5 years with COVID? I mean, hey man, I tell you, the CDC is right up there with like the list of organizations I just don't have a whole lot of faith in. Period. And, and the people that are running that are responsible, because that's the problem. They never go away. Hey man, I'm all for it. And I tell you what, I know Kennedy catches a lot of crap right now with the FDA and vaccines and this and that. Everything I've heard him say, especially since he's been the secretary, bottom line is the information should be available, period. But that's not what happens. What happens is, and I'm quoting Fauci here, this is settled science, right? It's settled science. So you can't sit there, we can't question. We can't question these scientists. It's just like global warming, climate change, the vaccines, everything. You can't question any of that. That's settled science.
Did you guys see, in that vein, did you guys see the push-up competition with
Yes.
with Kennedy and Hegseth?
Yep.
People were talking trash about RFK's pull-up form. That dude racked out 50 pull-ups.
Well, in the video,
he's
the video
70,
they showed,
he's over 70 years old.
Jeez.
The video they showed of him, and because they were also giving Hegseth shit because he was doing chin-ups.
Oh yeah,
that was so that clip they showed. That was the last like 10 seconds of the challenge. They missed the entire beginning when they were racking stuff out. That was just like, hey man, whatever I got to use to kick myself up over this bar is what I'm doing.
Dude, I don't care whether it's chin-ups or pull-ups, even 50 chin-ups.
Oh yeah.
At that age, bro, it's killing.
5, even 5.
Yes.
At that age, at 71, 5.
Okay,
I don't care how bad your
was
form
over
is.
70. Dude, he did 50 pull-ups. I don't care I don't care if 49 of them were kipping pull-ups. Like that dude did 50 pull-ups at 71 years old. Are you kidding me? And people were talking, they were talking smack about his form. I was like, get out of here. And he did 100 push-ups. Dude, get out of here. That dude's a stud. Hey man, that guy's a stud. And you know what? I will listen to him about health advice, even on some of the stuff I don't agree what he says. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, dude, I would take that dude's advice long before I would take our previous HHS secretary's advice.
Burks.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
HHS was Burks, right?
It was
just look into the history of fluoride.
But
when you look into the history of fluoride, so they, and it's funny because when I read that, I went to the dentist, which by the way, my teeth never bother me until I go to the dentist. But anyway, so I go to the dentist and, they do the fluoride treatment or whatever. And he's like, keep it on there for 30 minutes. He's like, really, it's just, it's just topical anyway. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, it's funny because then, RFK goes off on this whole fluoride ban. Well, yeah, apparently, and I'm going to miss the date on this. I think it's back in the 70s. They're like, oh yeah, fluoride topically, like it's great for the teeth. So it must be even better if you just ingest it. That's the gist of it. And dude, I'm not BSing that. You read that stuff, they're like, it's good for the topical treatment. You should just eat it because it'll just flow through your blood, man. And that's how that comes. So you start reading into this stuff, and you're like, man, they're not kidding. Now, obviously, I'm a fan of fluoride in my toothpaste and stuff, but like, I don't know I necessarily need to be eating that stuff.
So let me ask you all this. When I was born in Phoenix, where they back then they did not fluorinate the water.
Right.
I lived there till I was about 8, I think 8. And the baby teeth that came in were a freaking mess. And my mom will be the first one to tell you there was no sugar in the house. Okay. We didn't get sugar cereals. We didn't get sodas. That was a very special treat. We ate, she tried to feed us pretty healthy. So it wasn't the sugar that was rotting away my teeth, but my teeth were just awful. Man, I had to get caps on the teeth. They were so bad before they fell out. So then, as they started falling out and stuff, we moved to Texas when 8 or 9 years old, and where in Amarillo the water was fluorinated. Okay, and I haven't had a problem with my teeth. Knock wood. I haven't had a problem with my teeth since. Got very strong teeth. I think I've had one cavity in 51 years of life. After my baby teeth fell out. And is there something to that? Because I always brush my teeth, use toothpaste. But I always attributed that until all these studies that Roger just brought up. I always attributed to fluorine being in the water, and it wasn't fluoride; it was fluorine because they fluorinate water with fluorine. So, I mean, you think there's anything to that, or you just think that my teeth came in stronger? What do you think?
Environments change. I think your teeth come in stronger. I don't know that, because they call it topical versus systemic. I think it's systemic. Yeah, systemic fluoride. I and hey man, I'm not a scientist. As much as I've read, there are some things saying, well, yeah, it kind of makes sense, but there's just no widespread consensus that like this is actually good for your body and probably causes more problems for your liver and kidneys. Now, the other thing is this, especially as you go on for years, water quality gets better, right? They do add, the fluoride in toothpaste or more things with fluoride mouthwash. As we get older, you take better care of I mean, dude, when I was 5, I didn't give a crap about my teeth. Hey, you're going to need your teeth when you're 70. I'm like, seriously, I'm worried about like what time I'm going to bed tonight. As you get older, you start taking better care of your teeth, what you eat, this and that. But I'm just not sold on the, maybe there is some advantages to the systemic. I'm just not sure that the pros outweigh the cons of it.
And Josh, anytime, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. No, finish your thought. Go ahead.
I was going to say, anytime the government tries to help the population, man, how many times has that turned out well? I'm sure it's turned out well in the past, but it's like when the Romans basically poisoned themselves with the aqueducts, lining them in lead. It wasn't about, oh, we're lining them in lead to help the population. No, it just happens to be the most efficient way to do it. It ended up poisoning the entire population of Rome, but it makes you wonder, 1,000 years from now, did Americans get dumber because of A, fluorine, B, plastics, or C, social media? Is that why their empire fell?
Social
or D, the Fed?
Yeah. Social media would be my first guess. I would fluoride though, would that impact how your teeth come in and how your teeth are how your teeth come up out of the bone? Like, because to me, that would be more influenced by, and again, right, I haven't really read into it. Yeah, it would be more genetics than anything about that. Now, once your teeth actually come, like the health of them and stuff, then I think that's debatable. But as far as like how they're coming in, whether they're crooked, hey, I've got impacted teeth, multiple, whatever, you look like a great white. Like, I think that would be more genetics than, I didn't get fluoride when I was a baby. But I don't know.
Let me ask you guys a question. My thought process has always been, because I was single until I was 39 years old, out there. And so, I had a great time and everything. And I'm happy as hell to be married to my wife, girl of my dreams, all this stuff. But I always, eugenics, right? eugenics has always got to be back of mind. And eugenics is a bad word. Oh, this episode is definitely getting banned from YouTube. I just brought up eugenics. We brought up COVID, trans, dot Indians, RFK Jr. We throw, oh, dude, this is getting banned. So I just brought up eugenics. So eugenics has always been back of mind for me. It's like, so if you can find a woman, right? If you can find a woman to have kids with, to breed with, if you will, if you can get 2 out of these 3, you're good to go. Eyes, let's say she's never had glasses, right? Teeth, she's never had braces. And skin, she's never had acne. Man, that's the holy trinity. What's the 4th?
A dick.
Well, yes. But if you get those 3, that's the holy trinity of not having to spend a ton of money on your kids. Because if your kids have to have glasses, it's a ton of money. If your kids got to have braces, there's a ton of money. If your kids, God forbid, girls have to go through high school with acne, you're going to have to do something with that. So if you can get 2 out of those 3, that's a really good deal, right? Now, I happen to have 1 out of those 3. I had good teeth, never had to have braces. I had bad skin, I had bad eyes. So what are y'all's thoughts on that? Because, I mean, dude, those 3, that costs a lot of money. Y'all's kids had braces and eyes and skin?
So all 3 of ours went through braces. All 3. But the great thing is that we had great dental plans and dental insurance. And so, granted, we still had to pay it. I don't want to do that again. Right. I definitely have more, I definitely got a little more liquidity, now that they're not in braces. But it was to varying degrees. Like, our oldest had them, and then, but she didn't have to have them very long. Our middle daughter had them, like, she was like, you're going to be in braces for like a decade. Right. Because she had a mouth like a Mako. And, then our youngest, like, hers really, really wasn't that bad. Because my wife, she never, yeah, she had braces, but she didn't have them very long. She didn't wear glasses, never has. I brought all the bad things, right? Because I had glasses, since like 2nd grade. I had braces, and I had the pepperoni face in high school. Man, I had acne, dude. Hey, man, I just got dealt. I got dealt the hand I got dealt, right? So yeah, we're all right. We're good, Roger.
Yeah, I don't know that it's. I mean, there are some people that are born with good skin and this and that, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to, hey, man, beauty costs money, period. And so when you look at a lot of your folks on TV, and don't get me wrong, you've got your one-offs and a couple of, the I don't give a F and, whatever. But hey, man, teeth can be fixed. Skincare programs, right? Weight can be lost, whether you exercise or what. The money can go a long ways when it comes to beauty. So a lot of that stuff, you sit there and we see folks. I remember, folks growing up, kids, like, we were all ugly. We all had acne, braces, this and that. Half of us wore glasses, whatever. But especially once you hit your mid-teens and early and later on, it's like, hey, man, families with money, that kid that was wearing braces at 5 and 6, has straight teeth now at 10 and 11, right? That kid that had acne at 7, 8, 9, 10 or whatever was on the Proactive or whatever the hell it's called, and now has clean skin, or whatever the case is. Or the kid had contacts now or LASIX or whatever. So money goes a long way, man. Beauty just costs.
Okay. I'm going to, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, you're right. Money can fix those things. There's one thing money can't fix, though. Stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid is forever.
That is true.
Yeah. Stupid is like being dead, right? Everybody else knows. Y'all know that quote. So I want to make sure that this episode is going to get banned from YouTube.
Oh boy.
So, Hitler set the human race back by centuries. By centuries, he set it back. Because I alluded to it earlier, eugenics is now a bad word. Okay, it's a bad word because Hitler was a fan of eugenics, right? He was a fan in a bad way, though. I've said this over and over. The reason eyesight is getting worse and worse is because, back in the day, in the caveman days, if you had bad eyesight, you were a bad hunter. You were a bad hunter. You were a bad provider. So no woman is going to marry you. No woman is going to be with you. There was no marriage back then. No woman is going to procreate with you. Same thing with asthma, allergies. You're going to die if you're born with the defect of having a pollen allergy. There were no inhalers back in the caveman days. So you're just going to die. You're not going to be able to spread your defective gene throughout the rest of humanity. It's the same thing with it's the same thing with insulin, right? If you're diabetic, dude, you're going to die at a young age. You're not going to be allowed to spread your genes through. So eventually, I'm going to say it'll probably be 500 years from now. Eugenics will no longer be a bad word, and we can start addressing these genetic weaknesses. But Roger brought up a good point. Some people are just born with it, right? So it's been a while since we recorded, and I don't think in the last episode we talked about the Sydney Sweeney ad. Did we?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so Sydney Sweeney ad, Josh, are you familiar with that? Because I think Sydney Sweeney is one of those that's just born with it, dude. She wears very little makeup. She's causing a resurgence of the not Olivia Newton-John, the Farrah Fawcett. Yes, the Farrah Fawcett days. It's like, holy crap. If she has had plastic surgery, it definitely doesn't look like it. She's young enough. So what do you think about the Sydney Sweeney? What were they? Old Navy? Who was it?
No, it was American.
It's American Eagle.
American Eagle. So take it away, Sydney Sweeney. What do you think about all that? Good, bad? What do you think?
I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. It brought back, because again, it goes back to it goes back to, right, that biological, right, at our core, right, and down at the DNA level, who we are. It's like, hey man, this is what is attractive. This is what companies should be, and this is what role models, or I don't know Sydney Sweeney from Adam's House Cat, but when you look at, we should not be celebrating people like Lizzo because she's obese, right? We should not be celebrating obesity. If you want somebody to be in ads, you want something that kids look up to, whatever, right? They should be healthy human beings, right? And I don't care who you are, 300 pounds, you're not healthy, and you shouldn't be out there modeling and everything. The whole the whole attractiveness thing aside, but it got rid of a bunch of what we had to deal with for the last 4 years, obese people on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, and this and that, and get that stuff out of here. I love it. They're like, dude, I don't. It was shocking to see. It wasn't shocking, but it was like, you see a lot of younger, because I followed it a little closely. After it came out, you saw a lot of younger males, right? Like teenage stuff like that, and commenting on social media, whatever, right? Mid early 20s, they're like, giddy up, right? And it was like, yes, all right, there's still some boys out there, who have some testosterone in them. So I thought it was good. What's crazy, do you know her brother's in the Air Force?
No idea. I didn't know
her
that.
brother. Yeah. So she posted a picture on her social media of them too. Her brother's in the Air Force. Could you imagine? Like, you're in the barracks and your roommate, you're like, hey man, you want to come home with me for the weekend? Long weekend? You got any plans? Oh, dude, I was just gonna stay in the bees. Yeah, hey man, why don't you come home? My sister's having some friends over. We can hang out, stuff like that. And then you show up at your buddy's house, and your buddy's sister, Sydney Sweeney. You're like,
there's a downside to that.
Oh, there's a downside. There's a downside to that.
You know what I'm talking about. Yes, right. You can imagine. Y'all saw Generation Kill, right? Where they passed around the...
Yeah. There's a downside to that. Did you see, this was during GWAT. It was like 2006, 2007. one of the girls who lived in the Playboy Mansion, her brother was an E5, and he was like an engineer, not even a cool engineer. He wasn't a combat engineer. He was just like I'm an electrician, right? He was a build
He's a
stuff engineer. It's
CB.
like, yeah, basically you're a CB, but you're not even you're an army guy, so you're not even a cool CB, right? And for his 2-week R&R leave, he spent it at the Playboy Mansion, and they show him coming in, right? And like his sister's there, greets him, and Hugh Hefner's there and greets him, shakes his hand, thanks for his service, blah, blah, blah. And then like they cut to the video a little later, and there's like 3 or 4 more like girls who live in the mansion. Grab that dude and take him to the grotto. And then the camera is just like, cut away.
You don't see him for 2 more weeks.
Bro. Oh, yeah. Anyway.
So check this out. You were talking about eugenics. I didn't realize this. So Montana, so you for our listeners out there, you used to have a blood test to get a marriage license for our young listeners out there. Do you realize Montana held out to 2019?
What?
They're the last state finally in 2019 that eliminated the blood test requirement to get a marriage license.
I figured that would have been
insane.
like
I
West
thought that
Virginia or something.
Well, I thought it had been done, a couple of decades ago, man. I mean, I remember hearing about it when I was like a little kid, but not any time in the, after the 2000s, man. 2019.
I'll say Hitler and Margaret Sanger. Okay, so both of them. she. Josh, God, what you just put in the chat. Yeah, that would seal the deal. All right. The F word, and we're not talking about the UCK one.
Jesus.
But yeah, I just want to hear somebody argue against like a morally pure and ethically pure approach to eugenics. Like if and people are already talking about it with the DNA sequencing and all that stuff, where you can. If you identify a certain gene, I love the shirt, Josh. I love it. Freaking Masood shirt. Heck yeah. But if you can eliminate certain defective genes, why would you not do that?
And they do that anyway to an extent. Like during
they do, and that's eugenics.
Right? Yes, absolutely.
That's what that is.
Absolutely.
It's like all of a sudden I'm a Nazi because whatever.
Well, no, that's because it's just like
Hitler had a dog too.
Yeah. They just throw these buzzwords out there because it makes everybody sound bad or whatever. Well, I mean, look at what, nationalists and nationalism, right? Look at, that became a bad word over the last 5 years, but that was the whole point of blood tests, was because of syphilis, and syphilis could be passed down from mother to the child, causing birth defects, right? And don't get me wrong, I get it. We're all God's creatures and this and that, but there's a reason why they do these prenatal tests, because, hey, it allows the parent or the parents to decide, hey, do you want this child? This is what's going to go on. Do you want to? Thank God I never had to make any decision like that. I mean, that would be very, very tough. But that's the whole point of that. And to some, that's the difference when you talk about Sydney Sweeney and all these people on the left that are mad. And Josh, you hit it on the head with the Lizzo thing. The left, and I said it, at the beginning, one of the greatest failures of like our political system, us as a culture, society, it's Barry. He made it okay to fail, right? And never try again. It was fine to fail. And so when you look at the Lizzos and this, that, it's okay to be obese. Okay. Now, hey man, you want to be obese. That's great. Whatever. You go do your thing. That's badass. But let's not pretend it's healthy. Let's not pretend that you're going to live to be, because you know what? She's going to be with what's his face, the old dude, on a diabetes commercial here in another 5-10 years.
Wilford Brimley.
Yeah. Don't pretend that that's okay. Now you want to do you. And again, this goes back to like the RFK piece and liberal, libertarianism, and you do you. Hey, that's fine. Not a problem. But like Josh's type, hey, you get on an airplane that takes 2 seats or, for your fat ass. Well, guess what? You need to buy 2 tickets. You accept those consequences. They were trying to make it okay to be fat. It's okay to be unhealthy. It's okay. And I got the whole be happy with yourself and this and that, but it's not, let's not pretend it's healthy. Right.
because the government wants you unhealthy. Because if you're unhealthy, the government has that much more control over you, and you're less of a threat if you're unhealthy. Let's just face it.
And the more Ozempic prescriptions we can write, the better.
Yeah, 100%.
Which one of you guys had a story about the 2 airline seats? It was either Roger. It was one of
Well,
you
I
guys.
just had one. Well, I think Josh did before I did. I was just flying, and oh, bro, I've never actually seen it happen. So I get on the airplane. I was actually coming back from visiting Josh. Come back, I get on the airplane, and my layover, dude, when I landed to get on the next flight was already boarded, because normally I'm like one of the first to board or whatever. So I'm like, all right, I get in there, and there is this very, very large woman sitting in the middle seat with the armrest up and spilling into my seat. And dude, I'm done playing those games, man. Like I literally, somebody, because I sit in the main cabin extra, and somebody like, can you move your bag? No, because this bin is actually reserved for my seat, right? That I paid for. So no, you can go and put your shit above your seat. But anyway, I look at her, and I was nice about it. I had thoughts going in my head, but I looked at her, I looked at the armrest, and I shoved that armrest down, dude. That armrest was going down. Sat in my seat, put my buckle on, and I tell you what, dude, I feel bad for the dude, skinny white dude against the window, getting crushed, because I was not giving up an inch of my ground. And the airline stewardess, never seen it happen on a flight that I've been on, actually came up and moved that lady. After about 5 or 10 minutes, she came up and she's like, ma'am, we have another seat for you. And you know how some of the exit rows only have 2 seats? You have so they use that as the spillover for her. They put her in that other seat and moved that person in my seat to accommodate. Unreal. Dude, I'm done with stuff. Like I especially that stuff there, I'm done with it. Like I pay for that seat.
Yeah.
I pay, as small as those seats are, I paid for every inch of it.
I'm coming around to Josh's way of thinking more and more, and I never would have thought I'd say this, but yeah, tax people based on their body fat percentage. Boom.
100%. 100%. That's the way it should be. It's, it's the same thing. Here's the deal. It's the same thing. Hey, if you have a really bad driving record, you're going to pay, you pay more in insurance.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So guess what? If you are obese, right, by choice, right, you don't have a thyroid problem or a medical condition that makes you that way. You're just like, yeah, man, and you're sucking down quarter pounders, every day. Well, guess what? Your health insurance should cost you a hell of a lot more than
Absolutely
what I should pay, right, for mine.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And yeah, and then guess what? There's a carbon tax. There's guess what? You pay more at the fuel pump, right? And you got to figure out how to do all this stuff, because guess what? Your car burns more gas driving you around because you weigh more. Your car has to work harder and burn more gas. So guess what you're now paying? You're paying more at the fuel pump. Like, you're going to tax your ass into being healthy.
Road
That's
tax,
just the
man.
way it should be.
Road tax. You put more wear and tear on the concrete.
Yeah.
I think we can all three agree, though, we need to draw the line at liver enzymes. Okay, don't test my liver enzymes. Don't tax me more for that. No.
Yeah. Leave my liver alone. Don't tread on me. Little picture of a liver.
Don't.
Like,
Yeah. So okay, all right. So speaking of don't tread on me, I'll kick it to Roger. Roger hasn't talked a lot in this episode, believe it or not.
Yeah, I have. It's not quantity; it's
not
quality.
As much as well, there you go. So we've only got like maybe 10 minutes left, but oof, man, the UK, oof, you got some family going over there soon, and boy, it sure seems lost. I know things always sometimes seem to appear worse on the news than they actually are, with the exception of the Biden border crisis. That was far worse than even Fox portrayed it. But what's going on in the UK is kind of crazy. And you had a girl up in Scotland who was being harassed by a couple of migrants, we'll call them, probably North African. Middle Eastern, which North Africa now is the Middle East, by the way, which geographically doesn't make much sense. But anyway, this girl drew the line. Like it was her. She's 14 years old, I think, and her cousin or something about the same age. And these guys were harassing her. If I don't have that right, Josh, go ahead and correct me. Yeah. So this chick pulled out a machete and a hatchet. And from what I can divine on X and all the news sources is that she was the one who was arrested because she pulled out these like brandished them like Joan of Arc, like freaking the female version of William Wallace, like rah, and they left her alone. You can see they backed off, and she was the one that was arrested. So, that's a T-shirt ready to be made. Don't tread on me, stand your ground, whatever. So, Roger, yeah, I know you're tracking that. I know Josh is too. What do y'all think?
I think Josh hit on the head. I think when you look at most of Europe, it's just been on a decline, man. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I lived in Korea longer now. Europe, I visited in Korea. I lived there for a couple of years, as well as being born there. And I could see the decline. And a lot of it is due, and I guess you could say the same thing here. A lot of it was just loss of perspective, right? When I look at my grandparents, I mean, they remember and know communist North Korea and communist China. And so they fought in those wars. But the farther and farther you get, you remove from that, and that, we've talked about it before, the better and better your quality of life, you forget about that stuff. Oh man, it's all peace, love, and happiness. And it's like, no, that ain't the way the world works. And I remember just in the 2 years that I was over there, just watching it, like how liberal that place had become. And it's because as the older generation, begins to pass and the newer generation gets farther and farther, that's why you have to have a war, every now and then just to kind of, stand up for your rights or whatever. But they just lose that perspective and they lose that context. I think when you look at the UK, and again, not as familiar with the culture and stuff over there as like Korea or even here. I think maybe it's just the same thing. I mean, it's they fought the stuff in Afghanistan. They've had a couple conflicts here and there. I mean, even the IRA, that was kind of like back in the 80s. It's just like, hey man, there's just a lot of loss of context and perspective. And then globally, maybe it started here with Barry. You've got this. Oh, we just all love each other now. We're one world, one people. It's like, that ain't how that works, man. And so you get a lot of folks that are just out of touch with reality. And the problem is when that becomes 30 or 40% of your population, you've lost control. I don't care who you think you elect and what you think they're going to do. I mean, you look at it this way. The Democrats here in America are now defending high crime in Baltimore, DC, Chicago, Houston, and St. Louis, right? They would rather have high crime where Trump literally has to send in the National Guard to prevent people from being murdered in DC. Okay. And the left, you still have people like, well, no. So sorry, you're saying so people should be murdered here every weekend? Like, I think we've gone 2 weeks now, right, in DC since the National Guard's moved in with no murders in DC. First time in like, I couldn't tell you how long. And it's not, but you have folks here that are defending like, so how many murders are okay? And that's part of the problem when you look over the UK and the rest of Europe. I mean, you can even tie that with, Ukraine and Russia and all that stuff. I mean, it's part of the problem with Ukraine. You look at that whole war, and I know I'm kind of going down a tangent here, but it's like part of my issue with that outside of the accountabilities, we're the only ones who give a shit. The rest of the Europeans don't, because if it's not happening within their border, right? They should be, hey, the old Soviet Empire is such a threat. It's such an existential threat. Well, then maybe the Europeans, should give a shit. But again, maybe that's why we had to fight World War I and World War II for them. But back to your whole thing with the UK, I mean, it's becoming overrun with migrants or immigrants. And I don't even know what their immigration policy is over there. I don't know if there's like a lot of illegals or if they're just freely letting in a lot of folk, Middle Easterners and this and that. And when, you see it here with places like Dearborn, right? When they are no longer forced or they're not forced to integrate with your country, your heritage, your culture, your laws, they create their own. And now you've lost your identity as a country. And that same shithole they just came from, it's like Arizona, Texas, and California. They leave their shithole in California to come to Arizona and Texas. And what do? They bring their same shithole policies and way of living with them. And that's exactly what you're seeing in Europe and specifically in the UK.
The UK is so, but Bubba just to get
Oh,
on here.
Bubba.
Yeah.
Hunter, that guy's a killer, man.
Yeah, dude,
Straight up
he's
assassin.
20 he's 20 pounds of assassin, which is big for a cat. Anyway, he's the Lizzo of our cats. So the UK is finding out the hard way, and they have been for a little, for some time now, that not all cultures are compatible, right? And that's really the long and short of it. Is they imported a lot of folks from a certain religion and certain culture and expected them to assimilate into society, and they don't, because that's not how that culture operates. That culture does not assimilate. It's the same thing with and let's just take let's take the the Jewish culture. They don't assimilate, right? They have a very culture. They don't like outsiders. They don't let a lot of people in. You don't see a lot of people converting uh, over to Judy, and it's they're not going to be able to vote their way out of this. There's no way they vote their way out of this, because it's bad. Like, I mean, it is bad. You had what's his name, the prime minister today on there talking about that, edge weapons. Nobody is allowed to have edge weapons now, and that's like this girl who her and her cousin or her sister or whatever it was are being followed by two grown ass men who are filming them, right? These men are either from the Levant or somewhere in the Middle East, and rapes have gone up exponentially across Europe, and it's this certain religion, a certain ethnicity that is perpetrating these things. And so this girl, the only way she can stop this and protect her and her cousin or her sister or whatever is to pull out a machete and a hatchet, right? And then they arrest her. Then that 14-year-old girl is arrested. I don't understand why I don't understand why that city is not being burnt to the ground tonight. Like, because the good thing is that dude who was filming, and I saw that, everybody's seen the video. That dude didn't close the distance. As soon as those edge weapons came out, he created distance, right? And it's like that right there. That's the only way they're going to be able to do this. But they turned around and they arrested the girl. I don't understand that. And what I also don't understand is how a 14-year-old girl has more stones than every single man in that country. Dude, they should be, I'm telling you right now, they should be burning that place to the ground, because you can't even fly. Dude, you can't even fly the British flag anymore. They are arresting people for raising the British flag because it might be seen as offensive to some. You can't raise your country's flag. That right there, there's going to be a new business venture. Somebody needs to get on it. I think C3 is perfect. Dude, we're going to run guns to the Irish and the Scots. We're going to start running guns over there, man. It's going to be amazing. It's just, dude, can you imagine King Richard the Lionheart is rolling over in his grave? He is absolutely rolling over his grave because the Crusades didn't go far enough.
Yeah.
The Crusades did not go far enough.
Josh just went from this one getting banned to us getting investigated for international arms trafficking. So, I got a lot to say on this. We could record for 4 hours, dude. We could, but we have constraints. But it boils down to this. Josh brought up a lot of really good points. The British and Europeans in general, with the exception of maybe Poland, Hungary, and some of the old school Eastern European countries, think they're so much smarter than they really are. Some of those laws in Britain, the UK, it's like, well, the reason we don't want people to fly the Union Jack is because that's going to incite violence, which we didn't even talk about the flag burning thing, which comes back to that. It's like they think they're so much smarter. Well, you can't fly the Union Jack because that might offend these people and cause more violence. That's why it's illegal. They think they're so much smarter than they are. But the thing with the girl, she premeditated, knew this was going to be a problem. What 14-year-old girl, goes and packs away a hatchet and a machete just for no reason at all? This has been a problem, and it's systemic. And she did that for a reason, and it's a problem. But what I want to bring up real quick, and I'm not going to close out. I'll send it to Roger or one of you guys. But as we've got like maybe 2 more minutes, there are one or two possibilities with this Cracker Barrel thing. And if I was the CEO of Cracker Barrel, this horned rim glasses girl, there was the big thing about them changing it to, you know, post, post capitalism, whatever, watering down Cracker Barrel. And I hate Cracker Barrel. I don't like Cracker Barrel. Their food is not good.
It sucks.
I kind of sided with Jeremy. It's chaotic when you go in there. I do not like Cracker Barrel. They do serve booze, which is a good thing. I think Waffle House serve booze, by the way. That's the Joker in me coming out. The Joker from The Dark Knight. But it's like, okay, so there was the backlash, against the new Cracker Barrel logo. Now they have caved and gone back to the old one. So is this a new Coke thing? Is this a new Coke thing where it's like, we're going to send some... That's how, if I was the CEO, I would play it like I'm a genius. I just pulled the new Coke. That's what I did. And now it's like if I kind of did like Cracker Barrel and I was a dumbass right wing MAGA whatever, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, they're going back to the old logo. I'm going to go to Cracker Barrel again. Maybe they'll get a bump out of this. But don't buy it for a second. This they messed up. They messed up bad. This is not a new Coke thing. It's whatever. But yeah. Cracker Barrel, whatever. I didn't eat there before. I'm not going to eat there again. And I know Jeremy is definitely never going to eat there because that dude goes into full on my Agent Orange PTSD. He's got a serious thing against Cracker Barrel. So Josh, that's my piece. We've got like a couple minutes. Go ahead, man. Close us out.
So I'm with you on the Cracker Barrel thing. I used to eat there quite often, because it was the perfect, just go meet your grandparents for lunch or, whatever place. Because they had the menu, it's got something for everybody. You can get your little, 5 cent, piece of candy, in the general store before you go in. They always have, Conway Twitty on the radio, playing above you. And it was great. But yeah, the food went downhill, quality and portion sizes. The women folk can get up and leave the table and go in the general store and they can shop and stuff like that while the men sit around and talk about the weather and everything else. And you got everybody love the rocking chairs out front. They sit for a spell, whatever, and visit, as everybody says. But their food quality went down. It just kind of sucks. We stopped going. We have one local to us. We went one time. This was years ago, man. It's probably 9 years ago. We went in there and it was the worst service I had at a restaurant in probably a decade, and the food was absolutely terrible. So, we got that Josh discount, right, and having it, and we haven't been back to a Cracker Barrel since, and really no desire to. They lost what made them, good to begin with, which is great breakfast, and that was it. So with that, we're going to close it out. You probably just want to go ahead and listen to this episode. If you want to watch it, you're probably not going to be able to because YouTube's going to take this thing down in about 0.0007 seconds after Roger posts it. So you're not going to be able to see it more than likely. Once this YouTube censors get a hold of this thing, they're probably gonna refer it to the FBI for international trafficking of arms. To 14-year-old kids in Scotland who are being oppressed by migrant invaders. It's a crazy world, people. Keep your wits about you. So everybody needs to go get them a hatchet and a machete. You need to arm yourself, and while you're out getting those, get that Canteen cup, put some good whiskey in it, and fight those invaders. Until next time, we'll see you.